We are now 271 long days from the midterms, and President Donald Trump has a new immigration message. In an interview with NBC News' Tom Llamas, the president now says a softer touch is required after the killings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy by federal agents in Minnesota. Check this out.
I learned that maybe we can use a little bit of a softer touch, but you still have to be tough. These are criminals. We're dealing with really hard criminals.
That shift in tone comes just hours after Trump border czar Tom Homan announced the withdrawal of 700 federal immigration agents from Minnesota. But remember, 2,000 federal agents are going to still be there. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, who are both under investigation themselves by the Department of Justice, call the move a step in the right direction, but they also warned that the key goals, like state-led investigations into the deaths of Good and Preddy, remain unmet. Meanwhile, even some Republicans in Minnesota are concerned about the president's very aggressive immigration policy. Watch this.
Younger adults of those who are of color are afraid that perhaps they might be stopped and questioned. And have to show their paperwork, and that's a real concern.
Obviously, the criminals and the other ones, there's enough of those to keep them busy at the present moment, so, obviously it should stay that way. In the grand scheme of things, I would like to see the laws changed to make the immigration process better.
I totally agree that we need to get the worst of the worst, the felons, the people who, I don't care where they come from, whether they're in Minnesota or they're illegal aliens, as they call them. But they're just going about it the wrong way. People are getting hurt.
All right, now let's bring in the nightcap. Brendan Greeley joins us, contributing editor for the Financial Times. Andrea Flores, former DHS official and White House advisor. She led the effort to wind down the Remain in Mexico policy under the Biden administration. Former Democratic Congressman Max Rose of New York. And David Litt joins us, former presidential speechwriter and author of the newsletter Word Salad on Substack. Max, I'm going to you first. What do you make of this new message? Is this Trump's new way of admitting that he's falling short on the issue?
It'll come about as close to that as possible, as humanly possible. But the polling numbers are clear as day, and he sees it. And he also saw the results of this special election in Texas. They are getting walloped. And the guy only cares about elections. But even when it is this bad, he still goes back to this core, they're all criminals, these are bad people messaging. And this is why they're going nowhere in the midterms, because they can't correct on this, because it's core to their DNA.
In the same sentence, he's like, make no mistake, these are hardened criminals. Like Renee Good, Alex,
yeah. I mean, what the hell does that mean? They killed people. A softer touch? This is who they are as a political party, and they will not change at this point.
Then is the de-escalation just a message? Because there are still, 2,000 troops there. They're still not letting the state get involved in any sort of investigation.
There's really no de-escalation. Minus
agents,
taking 700 agents. Look, I'll give some credit that that's an improvement. But in any Department of Homeland Security that I've worked with or served in, you've never seen thousands of agents occupy a city in this way, especially at the resistance of the mayor and the governor, and to impede investigations and to ask for voter rolls. I think we have to look through their aims. You have Homan this morning saying the ultimate goal is still mass deportation. If you want to achieve that, you have to have federal agents fan out across the country. That's how you achieve it. There's no other way. There aren't people coming in at the border for them to up their numbers. They have to go into communities and tear people away. And so that's how you do it. And I think a lot of people in the last year missed that's the only way to get it done. So if you don't want federal agents, you have to be against the mass deportation policy.
But also, if it were apolitical, if it were just a policy, then you would have all of these agents in Florida, in Texas, at meat processing plants in the state of Iowa, and they don't.
Well, they've never clarified that they're just targeting the undocumented population. Let's be clear. They're going after people with legal status who have pending asylum claims, temporary protected status. U.S. citizens are getting accidentally wrapped up. They're not doing any form of targeting to people who are just undocumented, because you're right, they'd be in those states, and it's very politicized. I mean, it's not real law enforcement. There's no public safety nexus right now because they're acting like no administration in the past has ever arrested people with criminal histories or national security threats. Every administration did. So, but he's so effective at like portraying that every immigrant is a criminal. Mm-hmm. He's been doing it for 10 years, and Democrats have not been able to crack that rhetoric or offer something different.
He was effective, but is that starting to shift, right? Because the Stephen Miller ultra MAGAs, they're never leaving Trump. But suddenly, right, you have SNL skits, making fun of it. But those centrists who were willing to be open to listen to it are kind of like, you know what, man, maybe not.
I also think we're starting to see the consequences of a quota system.
What do you mean?
Well, all the things that he promised, he's going to go after criminals. They're fundamentally incompatible with what we're seeing. What we're seeing is the consequence of Stephen Miller saying we are going to arrest what looks like a certain number of people every day. And if you have to meet a quota as a federal officer, you're going to do things profoundly differently. You're not going to go after criminals. You're going to go after people who are doing things the right way. The rhetoric that I hear from my family is that they have always supported going after
your Trump voting family.
My Trump voting family. I have always talked about we just want to make sure that immigrants come in the right way.
Yes.
And I think that people can get behind that. And what we're seeing is the inconsistency of the administration just deciding if we meet a quota, we're going to have to find people wherever we can find them, which means when they come in for an asylum appointment, when they come in as scheduled, when they come in for their naturalization ceremony. These are people who've done everything the right way. And I think that is starting to resonate.
I'm getting to you, David, but this statement makes me crazy because it's what I hear from my family. Mm-hmm. We just want them to come in the right way. Mm-hmm. For years and years and years, Congress has done nothing on comprehensive immigration reform. It was 2 years ago that Democrats actually signed off on a pretty conservative immigration bill, and it was Trump that said to Republicans, don't you dare put this thing forward, because he wanted us to get here. He wanted us to get to mass deportation. So this idea, we just want them to come in the right way, the American people might not want that, but Republicans haven't done anything to help us get there.
Republicans need this issue because their only option is to scare the hell out of people because they're fundamentally incapable of leading the economy in a responsible way here. There's only one point you made, though, that I disagree with, my new friend. And that is that they have a quota system. Mm-hmm. What they actually have is self-deportation goals. Mm-hmm. And so they will never want to do this quietly, even if they met these quotas. What they actually want to do is publicly scare the hell out of people with brutish, inhumane tactics that will up the number of people who just flee the country because they're so afraid. And that's the inherent immorality of this administration's policy and strategy.
And that's why the mask is so important. They can't do that. Exactly what you're saying. They cannot do that if they're not wearing masks. Right.
Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller is arguably the architect of the president's sort of draconian immigration policies. You know, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that Trump is increasingly uncomfortable with it. Some business leaders have said to Trump, my workers are afraid to come to work. Are we really going to put this on Stephen Miller? Because this has been Donald Trump's MO for decades.
Well, it's amazing. I feel like, Harry Truman had the plaque that says the buck stops here, and Trump must have a plaque in his Oval Office that says the buck stops anywhere but here, right? I like the idea that suddenly he's upset with Stephen Miller. It's like Donald Trump's going to be so upset when he finds out who hired that guy. But I think that fundamentally, this is Trump, as we've all been saying, this is who he's always been. And also, it's what his base has always wanted. I think what you see, even now in the polling, as the Republican Party craters on immigration, you still see about 22% of Republicans saying they're not going far enough. And you see another roughly 50% of Republicans saying this is about right. And so Trump has always cared almost exclusively about the base and only come back or, talked about a tone shift, right? What is this, the 500th tone shift we've seen since Trump started? Mm-hmm. And it's always been a case of when he realizes this is actually not working broadly politically, but his heart belongs to the base.